for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open forum. Do you have any open forums for me? Okay, we have Roger Mack to speak in regards to neighboring yard. Is this anything to do with the reliability project?
No.
No? Okay. Please come forward. Roger, state your name and address. You have 3
Roger
minutes.
Mack. My address is 13871 County Road 116.
What would you like to address?
Well, my neighbor, since I bought that place back in 2011, is a pack rat. He's got buildings all over the place, everything over. Doug was out inspecting my place and said, there's a lot of violations there, and he even told me that it was going to the county attorney, and she refused it. So every time I talk to somebody, I've been swept underneath the rug. When I first bought the place, I went to the tax people. I was the second person up, and I asked the people, there was 15 people in there, and they said, are you here to argue about your taxes? And I said, no. I says, I used to work for the city of Minneapolis. I know what taxes do. They fix roads, pay employees, all that other stuff. I says, but I want to know if your taxes are affected by living next to a junkyard. All 15 of them couldn't answer it. So he gave me a card, says, write your address down. He gave me his card. They called me 2 weeks later, and their excuse was, when you built that house, you should have turned it so you wouldn't have to look at it. That was their excuse. And I've talked to Gary Griffin, Tom Esperson, Jake Frey, Christensen, everybody. I had Bill Brecken out there, but he wasn't my commissioner, and then he recommended Doug, and Doug came out with Bill, and they walked the property, and Doug says, oh, there's a lot of violations here. I can't get any satisfaction. Nobody does nothing. All they do is sweep me underneath the rug. In fact, I was in Gary Griffin's office one day, and him and Jake pulled out all the photos of the neighbor's lot, and Gary says, well, what do you want me to do? I said, do your job. And he said, well, I don't know. I said, you know, you remind me of a lot of people that I used to work with at the Minneapolis. I was a union steward. I worked with the mayor, Brian Lockenschmo, who was in charge of the city and all that stuff. And I said, Gary, you remind me of people I used to work with. And he says, oh, is that a good thing? And I says, no. They sit behind a desk, collect a paycheck, and do nothing. And I don't know if he didn't like it, but I was telling him the truth. I shoot straight from the hip. So I'm here to see if you guys, I mean, I got photos, I got other stuff, I got all kinds of documentation. The wife looks it up all up. I need some help on this.
You have talked to Gary. How long ago has that been?
Oh, a couple of years. I've seen them a couple times after that, but they don't do anything. They just sweep me underneath the rug. Hopefully I'll go away. And I'm not going to go away.
Well, may I
Yes,
speak?
yes, you may.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming in here. And I will say that the county board has gotten, I think we've gotten more aggressive than any other county boards as far as cleaning up stuff. And I just talked to Chris Pence about a couple of issues in my district. But I will tell you, it seems like the law is in favor of, nowadays, the law is in favor of the criminals, the law is in favor of these people that want to have their place be an absolute disaster. And when you talk to the lawyers, it's just hard to do anything about it. But I will say, I think we're working hard to try to clean up some of these places. There's so many of these crappy places down in my district that we're trying to work on, but it's how do you get people to comply?
Yeah,
I don't know, so, but I think Gary and Chris and his staff, they do a good job, but it all has to be within the law, and we all have to go within the law. I don't know I know we normally don't speak on open forum, but I don't know if Gary, if you want to speak, it's fine. If you don't want to speak, it's fine. But I don't know. I guess
I would like that
It's
gentleman
up to
right
the
now
chairman.
to meet with Gary, maybe after the meeting or during, if Gary has time, and then Gary could report back to us what he has found out on it, because I'd like to know the background on it, and I really don't know the background on it.
And Mr. Chairman, there's a difference between, sometimes there's a public health, and Debbie, you help me with it, there's a public health nuisance, and then there's just a crap hole, which is not a public health nuisance. If something is going to contaminate the well or contaminate water or do something like that, we can move very quickly on that. But if it's just somebody with that's a pack rat, it's a whole nother thing. And the county board has been having conversations with Land Services about how we change Chris, help me, what would we be changing? Solid waste ordinance to try to go after some of these people they're really destroying their property. And I will say that I've always been one, I've pounded my chest and says, I'm a property rights guy for somebody's property. But you know what? I'm still a property rights guy, but I've changed because somebody that said, this is my land. Well, unless you're going to live, never die, yeah, then it is your land. But people die, and then the next generation or whoever it goes to next, they got to clean up your mess. So I don't know if that's making any sense, but anyway, that's all I've got to say.
well, if you ever go up on Mission Lake, I was the vice president of the Lake Association. Dr. Nick Bernier was the president. And if you go around upper or lower Mission Lake, when you get to the lower lake, you can tell that place. Nick Bernier lives right on the channel where you go from the lower lake to the upper lake. He says, I can see all the junk over there. All the people on the lake know that that's the trashiest place
Yeah.
between the upper and lower lake. And he's hauled sand in there. I've seen the trucks come in, hauled sand in. That's a wetland. You can't do that.
Right.
And then I was up there one weekend before we lived there. Me and my wife live there now for a couple of years. And I heard a truck out in front. It's Crow Wing Power. They disconnected the chipper off the truck, backed down into the wetland, and started dumping wood chips in the wetland. Well, I went down there with my phone. There was two guys in the truck. And the guy goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking a picture of you. You guys are doing an illegal act. He goes, what do you mean? I said, you can't dump wood chips in a wetland. So I called Crow Wing Power, and I talked to the supervisor, and I said, hey, your guys are dumping wood chips in a wetland? You can't do that. And then I called the county, and I told them that. Well, they came out and looked at it, but I don't know if they ever made them clean it up. And then he also has...
Roger, we've reached our 3 minutes.
Oh,
I apologize,
okay.
but we've reached our 3 minutes, and we'll need to go on. So,
Could I add to it, this does go a little bit before my time as your commissioner, but I would like to have Gary just give a brief history of what's going on up there. We did see buildings that were within the setbacks, and some buildings, I think, without permitting, things like that. But again, to Paul's point, some of these are tough to deal, but for the benefit of Gary, given he was
I do have
mentioned.
one question for you, though. He's got a building down by the lake in the wetland. It's supposed to be a boathouse. They're only supposed to be 10 by 12. This building is bigger. I found out that one of your inspectors from the county came out and gave him a permit 4 years after that was built.
Yeah, I don't have anything to that.
There's a lot of history here.
There's a lot of history, and I would like a recap of it sometime from Gary. I don't know if this is the appropriate time for it, or if you want to be prepared and bring it up at another time. It's up to you, Gary.
Commissioner Hoag wants to have a little.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna suggest that maybe we do another site visit. Gary, Chris, maybe Stephanie as well, and meet you up on the property and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's been a couple years, so I'm sure it's changed a little bit, but,
I mean, I've done everything according to the law, my place.
yeah, it's not your place that's
Yeah.
the issue, it's your
Yeah.
neighbor's place. So. But maybe, Gary, if you could just say a few words, and then we'll get together with Roger after and set a date, and we'll just go up and take a look, see what's changed.
Good. Hey, Roger. How you doing?
Thank you, Roger.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we have met with Mr. Mack numerous times, and we've been to that property numerous times. We've talked to the county attorney numerous times on what we can and can't do. There is a laundry list of different complaints on this said property. Property setback infringes, junk complaints, wetland fill violation complaints. So I don't have all the specific details in front of me today, but we have invested a lot of time to assist in addressing any concerns that the neighbor has had. I definitely can lay that all out for you, so I don't get any of the facts incorrect, because there's a lot of complaints that have been against the neighbor's property from Mr. Mack. But basically, sometimes we have to say no. And no doesn't mean we didn't do anything. Doesn't mean we sat in the ivory tower and just said, we're not here to help you. Sometimes we have to say no because we don't have the legal authority to do stuff. And I can tell you on the majority of the complaints, that's where we had to end it. And that sometimes is tough.
Yeah.
And I get that. But absolutely, it's been a few years since I've been there. Chris and I will handle this one personally. We'll go out there and re-examine everything. The neighbor has a different view of things too, right? There's always these two sides. So I just want to let you know that too. There's somebody that feels maybe a little picked on and, harassed, that just like to be left alone too, because it's their property. So we handle both sides of the fence here. So it's a sensitive situation. But
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So if Gary and Chris meet with Mr. Mack, if you direct staff to review with him, do the site visit,
Yeah.
Gary, perhaps you could send a follow-up report
Yeah,
to the board so that all of
absolutely.
you are aware of what the outcome
Right, and
was.
that's what I'm looking at, and I'm coming into it without having all the history you
Yep.
guys have on this, so I would appreciate that, so.
Not a problem.
Thank you very
Yep.
much.
More information.
Are we done?
More information, I just said.
More information, yes. You know me, yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting it figured out here, Paul. Now we'll go on to number 3, the review,
Any
or
more?
any other open forums? Anybody else for open forum that is not up here? Okay, we'll go on to a review and approve of the minutes. I would look for a motion.
So moved.
I would second that with a question.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, are we approving both 5/28/24 and 6/4/24?
Yes,
Both, all?
Then I can't make the motion.
they can't make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's
I-
do them one at a time then.
Okay,
Okay?
Go ahead, Rosemary.
I'll make the motion for 5/28/24.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now if we'll go on to the 6-4.
Mr. Chairman, I would so move to approve the special county board meeting of 6/4/24.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Review and approve the agenda.
No changes?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now we come on to the consent agenda. Motion to approve
So
or
moved.
any questions?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now we're on to Minnesota Power Northland Reliability Project update. And we have Zach, I think, coming up. Yep, you can come either way, whatever is more comfortable for you, Zach.
I'd prefer to stand if that's all right.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Olkowski. I'm a Senior Environmental Compliance Specialist with Minnesota Power on behalf of the Northland Reliability Project. You just want me to say next slide?
Or you can do it yourself.
It's up to you. Oh, there it is. Thank you. So it's been a brief minute since we've met, and a lot has changed in a year. We've come a long way with the Northland Reliability Project, but I'll give a short little rundown of the project, where it was a year ago, and kind of where we're at now. So. Just to recap, the Northland Reliability Project is a joint project between Minnesota Power and Great River Energy. It is a double circuit 345 kilovolt line from kind of in the Grand Rapids area down to Becker, Minnesota, connecting the Iron Range, the new Riverton substation, the Benton County substation, and the new Big Oak substation. It's approximately 180 miles. It's co-located 80% with other existing high voltage transmission lines, and with a couple expansions of expanded substations, as well as a couple new substations here. This is part of the MISO approved project and the regional plan of development. As you can see, we are the line in blue. Some names have changed for substations, but that's kind of the gist of this phase tranche 1 MISO regional plan. Again, this project fulfills the needs of maintaining reliability. It's enabling more and increased capacity of clean energy. It's strengthening the resiliency of our system, and it's enhancing the flexibility that's needed for the years to come here.
Zach, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Zach, can I ask questions along the way, or?
Go for it. Yes, please.
Go back to that Minnesota map. Okay, so I think it probably is important to explain, why, it looks like you got a line coming in from Big Stone, like in South Dakota through Alexandria. And what is the reasoning for all of this? Because I've had a lot of constituents say, well, why is this line coming in? And I said, power can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of, would it be right to say you're strengthening the grid so that there's no outages or blackouts? Correct.
So as we all know in Minnesota here, our writing's on the wall for coal and non-renewables. And with the new legislature in place and the clean energy coming in, it's going to take a more robust system. So our system right now is not prepared for that shift. So in order to accommodate that shift, we need to make our lines more resilient. We need to get kind of a more of a, get rid of the county. I call this project an interstate. You got the interstates, you got the highways, you got the county roads, yes, and then you got the gravel roads. We need a more robust interstate system, which is more back and forth. This isn't necessarily a line to transmit power, just wind, just solar, just coal, just natural gas. It's going to be everything. Everything's going to be on this line. It could be at the same time, could be one versus the other, but it's to give us that flexibility and that resiliency, so we are prepared in the future for the, what I call the writing on the wall. Sure. At some point here. Yep. Thanks. So it basically, exactly what you said, making this system more robust and heavier duty and resilient.
And I will say, Mr. Chair, is because of the Minnesota legislature, in essence, forcing power companies not to use coal anymore, I just remind everybody that the wind isn't always blowing for windmills and the sun isn't always shining, but the power's got to come from somewhere. And so I think what this line is trying to strengthen it, so if you don't have any wind blowing up here, you got to have some power from somewhere. So it's, I know some constituents of mine are not happy about this, but I don't know. I guess I look at the legislature and them forcing us not to use coal is having a huge effect. So anyway.
And in the past, they put coal plants in these non-renewable resources back in the day in strategic locations to transmit power to and from where it needed to go, but it was very centralized and very strategically located to get that power in a very efficient manner. Well, wind and solar are not necessarily within our backyard, so that takes a little bit more thought process and a bigger, more robust system in order to transmit that power efficiently and at longer distances. So.
I've pretty much explained it to most people when they talk about this line coming in. It's like, we used to get power from over here.
Right.
We can't get it from that receptacle. We need to run another extension cord.
Correct.
And that's what this, to me, looks like. It's just another extension cord to be able to get power to where we couldn't get it anymore.
A big extension cord.
A big extension, a really big extension cord.
A really big extension cord, yep. So you hit the nail on the head there, and that last bullet point here, enhancing and flexibility, that kind of says it all, the decarbonization and electrification that's going to be happening here and moving into the future, so. Feel free to ask any questions, stop me if I'm rambling. We broke this project into 2 segments. We have segment 1, which runs from the Iron Range substation down to the new Cuyuna Series Compensation Station, which is right in your backyard here, down to the Benton County substation. This will be a line that parallels for the most part, existing infrastructure, and will be a complete new build alongside other HVTL lines. Segment 2 down there in the green, connecting Benton County substation to Sherco and the Big Oaks substation, that is an existing line that will be replaced. It will be modified to the new 345 structures, but it will be within the existing right-of-way of that line. So no new right-of-way will be developed within that green area to the south. So our routing process, as you kind of remember, we were defining study areas and corridors, and when we came here, we were looking for stakeholder involvement and agency involvement. So we defined the route corridor, and then we went through the process of getting a preliminary route design, and then identified the proposed route, which led us to filing the certificate of need and the joint application with the certificate of need and the route permit to the Public Utilities Commission. We then engaged with stakeholders as well as landowners with hearings and met with them, and they were able to identify constraints and opportunities for the specific line, and we finagled things to accommodate that, and went through we're now in an alternative process in writing the EA, the environmental assessment. So just kind of
Mr.
breaks
Chair.
it.
Oh, could I ask a quick question? Your proposed route, has that changed from the time you were in our communities sharing the information?
Not terribly in this area, no. We've kind of had the same route, and I'll go through that right here. So
Okay.
we started with that larger study area, and I think when we proposed that, you guys saw that study area, and this was kind of a corridor of a lot of different pathways. Then we defined it a little bit more to the route corridor, which gave us a little bit of flexibility within the stakeholder engagement and trying to find those constraints. And then we got to this preliminary route, which is a little bit wider, and then down to the proposed route, which ultimately led to what are folks' alternatives? What do you feel is good? What can you change? And now we're within that process and defining which alternatives will get pushed forward within the environmental assessment. So,
Mr. Chair, so a question, Zach. So just maybe go through, because I think it was last fall, it was last year anyway, that there was a group of people out on, if you remember, out on, I think it was Woodrow Road. There's probably 30 or 40 people, and they were very angry, nobody's told me anything. Well, so what you're going to do is you're going to have to go to every single place, and you're going to have to talk to every single person. I mean, this isn't just going to, somebody's going to start drilling a hole, and you're going to have to negotiate with every single person. So if somebody says, nobody's talked to me, you will be out there and say, this is where the line, we're proposing the line to be, and you're going to negotiate with them.
correct.
To try to to figure out how you can go through their property. Is
Correct,
that
yep, and I
correct?
have a slide kind of showing that process
Okay.
in the real estate and acquiring easements and going through the right of entry process. And our awesome real estate folks are here to help me answer any questions that might come about with
So I
that.
just want to want some of the constituents that I represent to know that you'll be driving into your driveway, or you'll be sending them a letter and saying, hey, we're going to have to talk to you.
Correct.
About this proposal.
Yep, and that engagement has been ongoing. There's a lot of times we do receive people that say that they haven't seen anything, but we have a mailing list that sometimes it might look like junk mail, sometimes
Yeah.
it might not, and then people get aware of it and they start to understand that there's something coming through their backyard here. So, and then we do also have a public hearing with an administrative law judge here for the EA process, and that's coming up in July.
EA?
The environmental assessment.
Okay.
Yep, so the environmental assessment, I have a slide there that shows kind of the,
And one more thing, Mr. Chair, is, I shouldn't even bring this up, but you will have eminent domain authority, so but you don't ever, that's your last alternative, I would assume.
that is last resort, yes.
Okay.
It's not a path we like and choose to go down. In fact, that we do everything in our power to accommodate those constraints, move lines away from houses and do the best we can.
Yeah.
But that, yes, and
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, that is our very, very last resort in that matter. Yep. So to kind of narrow in on your area and your constituents here, this is what the route looks like within Crow Wing County. As you can see, you have the series compensation there right in Cuyuna. And this doesn't show the alternatives, but this one does. So in that alternatives process, when folks have the green light to kind of share their concerns and give a different alternative where they think the line should be, considering the rules and the PUC routing process. They've done a really good job. Minnesota Power has actually made their own recommendations and alternatives through this area that would help out and alleviate some congestion, especially further south there where that Highway 22 is, and then up by the series compensation station. So that is the process we're in right now. The Department of Commerce and EERA are going through that process to determine which of these alternatives, which most of these on this slide have been taken into account, and they show the environmental effects as well as cost and other things of that nature, and compare them to the proposed route. And then we go through that series of meetings with the administrative law judge and landowners as well as stakeholders, and come down to what's viable and what's not.
Just a question, is there a lot of acquisition of land that you're going to need to do for this project? I thought it was pretty much going to be in the corridor that was already there.
Yes, and approximately 85% of the line is within that corridor.
So it's
Yep.
the 15% that you're going to have to do the,
Correct, yep, new easements, new right-of-way, yep. There are some areas that need to deviate away just because of those constraints, and a lot of it has to do with housing and development and things of that nature, along with some other environmental factors that might come into play. So, yep, those are those deviations. And then a lot of these alternatives that landowners and stakeholders have put forth also have some sort of greenfield aspect to them. A lot of them do, but a lot of them are very, very good. And as you can see, they're straight lines that intentionally follow existing infrastructure. So they're great alternatives. The people put a lot of thought and effort into these and came up with some very good solutions. So kind of the process here, in August, like I said, we submitted our joint certificate of need and route permit to the Public Utilities Commission. In October 23, the Department of Commerce and the PUC had public scoping meetings, and that was within the length of the route here. We did collect the feedback as I stated, and they identified route alternatives to be evaluated within that environmental assessment, which is actually happening as we speak. And as if you look on you can find this information on e-dockets, and everything that's been filed, everything that's been then put into the docket for the Northland Reliability Project is there, so. Kind of where we're heading here, this is at the end of this month, approximately June 28th, they will publish the environmental assessment. Again, in July, and July 22nd through the 26th, we'll have the administrative law judge hold the public hearings, and I think the one in Crow Wing County is in Crosby Ironton on the 23rd. So that will be coming out, and those mailers will also be sent out here shortly in the very near future to everyone, including yourselves as well as landowners. In the fall of 2024, the ALJ report with recommendations, and he'll determine, or she'll determine which recommendations and which alternatives she wants to push through, and then hopefully, potentially in November, December, we'll have a Public Utilities Commission decision on the actual route and a permit in hand, hopefully.
So for us, it really isn't an ask. This is you informing us of what's going to be happening.
Correct.
Because there's not an ask for this county board. This is just information for us.
Correct,
Okay.
at this time, yep. And anybody's more than welcome to attend those public hearings, landowners, stakeholders, agencies, any of the like, so. Here at this time right now, we've actually started some field surveys, including biological. We have wetland surveys going out, noxious weeds, rare plants, bat. As you all know, the northern long-eared bat has become a species of concern here and a federally listed species. So a lot of landowners will have these acoustic bat detectors on their properties, as we need to do it every kilometer of the line. So that will be, all of those will be continuing into the fall here, and then also into 2025. Kind of breaking down the real estate portion of this. Right now, we are in the right of entry phases. We have Land Services Company, a consultant of ours, going actually door to door and calling landowners and focusing on, do we have right of entry? Can we get here to do field surveys? What do we need to do to move this forward and to continue this process and engagement with you? Then we go into the easement portions of it. But that usually doesn't take place until the route permit's in hand, right, Matt? And then once we have easements established, we'll get into construction and then in restoration. So construction will start potentially on the segment 2 portion, that green portion below, since it's not a brand new build. It will be within the existing right of way of an existing line. That construction is tentatively going to take place starting 2025. And then the construction going into 2030 for the rest of the project, or commission hopefully 2030.
And from what I understood, the overall cost for this whole project is?
Approximately right now, we're at 1.5 billion, 1.6.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a big deal.
It's going up. It has only gone up since we've started, so, yeah, it's a very, very large project, yes.
Mr. Chair, just another question for Zach. So Zach, you just said, when you just made that last statement, you said restoration. So what do you mean by that? I mean,
So when we go into a lot of these areas, we're going to need new approximately 130 feet of new easement, new right of way. So within that right of way, we'll put the line. We'll do construction. They're usually 12-foot round piers, and then that big structure will sit on top of it. So within that comes, mucking up of the land. We try to use timber mats where possible. So in those areas where the land does get disturbed, and there's a lot of this area is farmland, there's potential crop damage and things like that. So we'll be restoring those areas back to how the landowner wants it, or B, back to the more natural conditions as they were. And a lot of times that's seeding with rare plant or native seeds, and getting that back to what it was prior to construction. So that process does take, we might commission the project in 2030, but our efforts will be continuing after that until everyone's satisfied with how that process worked. Yep.
Can I ask another question?
I guess you can.
Okay, so it seems like you're trying to be less intrusive by these, I don't know what to call the what would you call where the line is on, the pylons or the
Base.
the
The
base?
base.
So you're not going with these, well, I can remember years ago when Paul Wellstone they were tearing these great big power lines down, but you're trying to go with the concrete and then it's just one pole coming up rather than these big wide ones that would take more right away. Is
So-
that right? or not?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. So one, yes, you do have, and you talk to farmers around these areas and they hate farming around H-frame structures.
Right.
There's a lot lost there. Now you'll have a guaranteed spot, right? It's a 8, 10, different angle structures might be 12 feet wide in diameter, and then one pole. But another reason is too, for the resiliency of this line, these structures are fairly tall, right? And they're double circuited, so they need to be beefy and they need to be big. So in order to carry that line and that conductor. So it's kind of twofold, a large structure, one monopole steel frame structure. And as you can see here, that's what it would look like next to an existing line. And it kind of shows the proposed expansion of the existing right-of-way and then the actual shared overlap of the right-of-way to reduce environmental and those things there. So that is exactly less footprint. We're trying to be the least intrusive as possible, but have
It'll
the
be a fair amount taller. That's
correct.
fair
Yep.
amount taller, the way it looks in those pictures.
Yep. So as you can see there, it doesn't show the foot, but they're approximately 160 feet tall. And
Wow.
yep. Yep. So, and the taller you go, the more flexibility you have.
Basically.
So these bundles right there, as you see, there's going to be three. There's going to be three different wire configurations here, and that's the double circuit part of this. But if you go, the shorter you go, the wider you go. Now you can't do that. Now you can't hang 3 circuits on a line. Yeah. So that's another benefit of a taller, more robust structure. Does that answer your question in a roundabout way? There's a lot of factors that go into the design of this, yep. So our upcoming milestones, and I've kind of touched on a lot of these, the PUC and the Department of Commerce, EA public hearings in July, engineering design for substations and the actual transmission line itself, that's ongoing, that effort has been ongoing. Then you have the state and federal permitting efforts, so it's not, once you get the PUC permit in hand, we're not necessarily done. We're going to still be working hand in hand with you folks and the constituents. And then environmental field surveys, which is actually started, and then anticipating construction on that segment 2 in the fall of 2025. Here's all of our information. Again, it's the Northland Reliability Project. You can get it at northlandreliabilityproject.com. There's the email address, or you can call our hotline and ask any questions there, and somebody will get back to you in a timely manner. So that is all I have.
Mr. Chair, if I might just add in here, I think you had a presentation, and it was at 2022 over in Crosby. You had kind of an open house or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
So,
quite a few, they had a few of them.
So Minnesota Power has been very transparent about this situation. So it's interesting, and there's been articles in the paper and that, so it's interesting that some people say they haven't been notified, but the information has been out there for several years, and I applaud you on how transparent you've been in this process, because it does impact some property owners, and we have to be concerned about that. Will these posts be the same or similar to the ones that are along 94?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so just to give perspective on what they're going to look
Correct,
like.
yep. That's kind of the equivalent that we're looking at here, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the board for Mr. Chairman?
I do think we have some people.
Yep, yeah. And so if there's anybody in the audience that would like to address, this would be a time for you to come up and you want to address the board in regards to this?
There's also people on Teams.
Or online also. Do we have some people online? Name and address, if you don't mind.
Joe, you can go ahead. Okay, I think I know what's wrong. Hold on.
I might just add in here, I think you had a presentation and it was at 2022.
I hear it.
Oh, that was Steve.
Yeah, but that's not supposed to
Oh.
be. He is unmuted. Joe, can you talk now? Tim, could you try talking? I just want to make sure it's not an external issue.
Nope, can't hear him.
Well,
Hear us, and we can't hear them.
let me check quick with our IT staff.
Oh, boy.
Do we want to,
Thank you.
I would like to make sure these people are heard. Should we go to another line item on the agenda and then come back to this? Would this work for the board?
If that's okay with the board members, we can
Yeah.
certainly work with the IT department. And as long as our folks online understand that they will be heard yet, we're working on getting the technical pieces done, but we can move on to another agenda
Right.
item.
If that would be okay with the board.
And if you guys are okay with hanging out and waiting until, perfect.
And actually, I'm going to close out the Teams meeting, so you're going to probably have to come back in, but I'm not sure, so that's, I mean, the rebooting is usually,
Are we ready to okay. We'll hold that until we can get those people to be heard. So we'll now go on to number 7, community services. And community services, we have out-of-state travel. I see is listed on here.
Hello, Mr. Chair, County Board, Kara Terry with Community Services. 2 items for you today. The first is out-of-state travel. That is for the CADCA conference. This is through our Drug Free Communities grant. Part of the grant requirements is that 2 folks from our entity must attend conferences to learn more about the Drug Free Communities grant and how best to implement it. So we would like to send our health educator along with the Blade coordinator. All costs will be covered by the DFC grant, so there will be no cost to the county. It will be located in Chicago and will run from July 15th through the 19th.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I would assume then, Kara, that they're going to be, whatever they learn, I mean, this is probably a dumb question, but they'll come back with what knowledge they've gained from down there and distribute that to all the other folks
Yes, sir.
in your department, I would assume, yeah.
Not a dumb question at all. And actually, they often give updates at the Blade Coalition meetings. So I can let you guys know when they'll be giving their update when they return, if you want to come and
Yep.
hear about the conference.
That would be good. I mean, when we do this, even though it is all paid for by the grant and stuff we had, it'd still be nice to know what they've learned and how that we can use it in the county to help that. Then,
Mr.
yes,
Chair, I would so move that we, the County Board of Commissioners approve the out-of-state travel request.
I'll second.
we have a motion.
Mr. Chair, for discussion, in the board action, it only mentions the health educator. Should we have the other party noted in there also?
A very good question. Along with yours, Commissioner Coring.
Thank you.
So the coalition leader is actually not employed through Crow Wing County, they're employed through MINPRA, but we do contract with MINPRA, so we don't have to approve their attendance, I just need our employee to be approved.
Okay, very good answer, thank you.
Well, thank you.
So is that a second then?
No, Doug seconded it.
Doug second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Now on to 7.2, the Blade Coalition opiate funding allocation.
Yes, sir. So in November of last year, the board approved the federal opioid allocation to put in a Narcan vending machine in the jail. I have to say that that has gone over quite well, and people are accessing Narcan quite frequently that come into the jail. I believe the jail has put some limits on how much they stock the vending machine, so folks don't come in and take 20 packs or whatever, but it has been not necessarily a popular item, but a welcome item to have, and jail could talk more about that. You also approved funding of 1/3 of the United Way communications position to help us with media and marketing for the Blade Coalition, as well as our DFC grant work. So since that meeting, we've had a number of things come up in terms of the utilization of our opioid dollars. One of those things that went through an email to you guys was the spending of up to $15,000 for a presentation that will be for all of our first responders. So for law enforcement, fire department, ambulance, all of our first responders, as well as veterans. And we'll be bringing in a speaker, or the sheriff's office will be bringing in a speaker to talk with that whole community about any issues that they might be facing, how that individual dealt with similar issues, and to help support those folks in that field. Today, we're looking for approval, or your consideration of approval, for a few different things. So the electronic medical records will be for the jail. We know that the jail currently has paper records, and having an electronic medical records system will bring us into this century. It will also help the Essentia doctors and the nurses who are providing care in the jail to access medical records. The tentative cost is going to be about $100,000. We don't have the actual proposal in front of you today, but we wanted to get this in front of you for approval. So we're ready to move on it when we do have the information. If you have questions on this specifically, I know Andy could speak to that.
I do, Mr. Chair, have a question on this. You said $100,000. What is that levy? Is that people's property tax dollars, or where would that $100,000 come from?
We would pay it out of the opioid funds.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, would that be is it Epic that the Essentia uses? And so would this be Epic software on these machines?
That is correct.
Okay, and do you have to have any kind of approval from Essentia?
Yes, we're working in with
Go
Essentia
back.
to build a contract for the purposes of utilizing the system, and $100,000 came.
Andy?
We are working with Essentia specifically to write a contract for utilization of the Epic system through their office, and that $100,000 is the startup. What they're telling us the estimated cost is going to be for the startup of the Epic program. So that's what we're preparing for, but it's actually through Essentia and not from the provider itself. It's actually a contract with Essentia.
So it'd be like one of their computers sitting over here?
Yes, yes.
As part of their system?
And then always yearly, the tails, as they say, what would be the yearly maintenance cost once we have that? I think our opiate funds are 18 years of that will be coming, so we have some time on it. But I would like to know what that tail is going to be yearly cost once we've initially installed the system.
Yeah, and right now, everything's estimates in regards to what our annual costs are going to be. So we don't know specifics in regards to what those costs are going to be, but we are currently working on grants that will provide us funds to actually offset those costs from the future. But you're right, the current opioid dollars are for 18 years. We're hoping to use other opportunities out there and grants to pay for annual costs to keep the Epic system going in Crow Wing County.
So, anybody else? Any other questions? Okay.
I do have another question, but it was going backwards on
Go
what you
backwards.
first talked about. Are you done?
I am not done. no.
Okay, go ahead.
Be far too easy. To Andy's point, we assisted the jail in applying for a Bureau of Justice Assistance grant in the amount of $550,000 to help support the jail health program moving forward, and that would include then the ongoing costs. We'll find out if we receive that grant, I think, in September, so fingers crossed on that. The second allocation we're looking for is $50,000 of the opioid treatment dollars to support a fund to assist individuals who are going into or coming out of treatment and might need assistance with transportation, housing, peer support, treatment expenses that are not covered by insurance, etc. The money would be allocated to the Mental Health and Substance Use Disorder team, and they would both track and use those dollars as they see fit for folks coming in and out of treatment. That doesn't mean that they will only be used for mental health or SUDS folks, but also across the county, so folks coming out of jail and that type of thing, people involved in drug court or DUI court. So it would be the entire mental health substance use disorder population for the county. Any questions on that one in particular?
So just a question on what's on the screen right now. So allocation of up to $2,500 for a sober cart. This cart is used to offer mock cocktails at events like that don't even, oh,
Yeah,
you're not
that's the
there
fourth
yet?
bullet. No, I'm
No,
not
she
there
hasn't made
yet.
it to that far yet. You're ahead of yourself now, Paul.
That jumped right out at me.
I
I'm
knew
like,
it would.
What?
I knew it
I know,
would.
you
Is
see
that
that.
all about?
Yes. So the third bullet down, Community Services has a Community of Wellness project. It's very similar to what the Sheriff's Office has implemented with Checkup from the Neck Up. As you know, we have a lot of folks dealing with a lot of different secondary trauma, child protection, probation, all of our adult social workers. So we've looked at different programs to implement. We copied the great program that the Sheriff's Office currently has, utilizing a couple licensed social work counselors who have provided counseling and therapy to our staff. This does cost money, though, and we would like to allocate up to $50,000 in our 2025 budget to cover this expense. Finally, the fourth bullet, and the one that Commissioner Coring cannot wait to discuss, is the allocation of up to $2,500 for a sober cart. So the cart will be used to offer mocktails at events like the 4th of July and our Sober Walk in September. The sober cart will help to provide an alcohol-free way to celebrate the holiday and other events. The Blade Coalition members will help to man the sober cart for these events and will create mocktails and other drinks that are alcohol-free. It'll not only help those who are in our sober community to celebrate with things other than water, but not alcoholic beverages, but also to help set a good example for our youth. Those are the four.
Obviously, I don't like it. I don't, it seems kind of silly to me, sober cart, but I'll support it, but I don't have to like it. And back to this vending machine thing, I don't understand that. So who would be coming in to the vending machine? Is it somebody that is on drugs and then they think that I better have some if I have an overdose, but they can't give themselves, or can they give themselves?
Probably not.
Okay, so who's getting this? And I guess I don't understand it. I mean,
So a variety of folks. So family members could be coming in, as they may have a family member who has had substance use issues in the past, and they recognize that they may need to utilize it. Folks who are using substances may take some along. Maybe some family members or friends of them might need assistance. I carry nasal Narcan in my backpack just in case I come across someone who might need assistance. We've trained a number of community partners in terms of the nasal Narcan use, as well as a lot of folks on our campus on how to utilize Narcan in the event of an emergency as well. So it could be a whole host of people coming in to use it.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions or concerns?
I have a comment before, if you want, you're going to make a motion on this? Is that
I
your-
was.
Okay, make the motion, I'll do my,
I would make the motion to support these 5 initiatives that are listed here. Looks like 5.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. We, Steve and I attended yesterday down at District 5, I think it was District 5 down in Chisago County, where we heard that the news, one of the Minneapolis newspaper put out there that a lot of opiate, funding that's out there, and made a big deal that it isn't being used, that it's being squirreled, it isn't, and make, to me, when I read the article, it led to me to think, well, is this money just sitting there and not being used? Really appreciate your presentation today to say, we are using that money that has been allocated by the state to use, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, and that reminds me of something important. So as a part of that article, it does reference the website that you can go on to look at the different counties and where the opioid dollars are being spent. We're looking at creating our own dashboard that we're going to link through the county pages, so the public can go on and see all of the areas that we've allocated money toward. So that'll be in the future.
And instead of just all of a sudden saying, oh, here's our money, let's hurry up and spend it, let's make sure we're spending it in the places where we're going to get the best bang for that buck. And so I appreciate the work you're doing
Thank you.
and taking care of that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we try to go back to this
Yep.
Teams to make sure it's
Let's
working?
go back to the Northland Reliability Project for those people who wanted to comment after the presentation.
Joe, go ahead and see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Outstanding. My name is Joe Eckert. I'm just south of Lens Road on 106, and I feel today now that I represent the 15%, although there are several landowners up in that area that I'm speaking on behalf of as it relates to the reroute. And if it's okay, can I share my screen? Because I've got some photos that I'd like to share.
We're heading there.
Yeah.
6 runs in here somewhere.
Are we?
Can you see what I'm sharing?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity. We appreciate it. Just a comment on communication. I can tell you that there was communication from the state, and I did receive a letter. But I can also say that that communication is not, it's broken, because virtually all of the landowners in our area were not aware of this reroute. And while they may have gotten a letter, it probably did look like junk mail, and it's just not a good way to communicate. And more importantly, in listening to the presentation from Minnesota Power, which was well done, when they talk about 85% of the line being existing easements and whatnot, and 15% not being that way, I get the feeling that it's not thought very well through in terms of what that 15% means, and that's what I want to try to get across here today. So there are other environmental impacts, and I certainly hope the folks from the DNR, as well as the environmental assessment team, have driven down this route. You'll see the pictures here in a moment, because there are some incredibly beautiful white and red pines that will need to be removed with this project. And the shame of it is that there's an existing easement that runs just to the east of this. And more importantly, with this roughly 5-mile reroute that they're putting out there, suggesting if they'd go to the east, it would probably be more like a 2-mile reroute. But I'm gonna share some of the data that I've kind of put together. I know the DNR is doing this for environmental reasons, and I appreciate that. All of our group are supporting the DNR through purchases of licenses, and permits for hunting and so forth and so on, and we appreciate everything they do. But in essence, this reroute is going to impact, at least the way I calculate it, roughly 22 different parcels of private property, of which that's scattered across 18 owners. Some of those owners have been there over 30 years. I think there's one on the call here that's probably been here over 70 or 80 years. and his parents were one of the, or grandparents are one of the first ones in that area. There's, from what my information shown, there's 2 residential structures that'll be impacted. There's some non-residential structures. There's loss of property value, loss of use during construction. I'm sure you guys have heard all of this. I can tell you back in 2019, when I drove through that area I'd been looking for land to purchase. And when I came down 106 and saw those pines, starting specifically right where Island Lake turns off, and then going up through Lenz Road, I immediately fell in love with that. And when I heard about what the DNR is suggesting to do, it's just devastating. Here's some of the pictures. These are the wetlands that they've talked about that are on 106 as well as Lenz Road. Fortunately, there's a road there, so that there'd be very little impact there, but nonetheless, they're there. But these are the pines I'm talking about. Some of these pines at the bottom are probably 3 to 4 feet across. And there are very few of those trees in Minnesota any longer. And they're gonna have to come down. And this goes all the way along 106, and it goes just about up to Lenz Road. You guys are so fortunate to live where you live. This is just some of the up close trees. I mean, they're just majestic. And this is just a sampling of the trees that are out there, folks. But how we can, as a society, make a decision to reroute and disrupt an incredibly peaceful, serene, beautiful area when an existing route is in place for a chunk of land that is virtually inaccessible to the public, and yet they want to put these hideous 160-foot towers down just a gorgeous chunk of Crow Wing County. And if you haven't been down that way, I would suggest you try to get out there and take a look at it, because you've got a beautiful county up there, and I go up there to get away from the hustle and bustle of the cities. And, you know, it's not going to be the same if I have to go up there and listen to the humming of wires throughout my property, not to mention the replacement of gorgeous white and red pines with 160-foot god-awful towers. And I know there's a couple folks, Brad, and I think Russ is there on site. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to this.
Is there anybody else who wanted to add anything? Gentlemen, did you want to? Okay. Just want to make sure of the opportunity.
Hi, Joe. This is Zach Lukowski with Minnesota Power. I think I saw that this was submitted to the docket within the PUC. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, I did see this, and thank you for doing that. I did print out some maps for the board members here, and there's some fairly zoomed-in maps of different areas of Crow Wing County. Would you mind letting the group know what alternative this was? What number? I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. I apologize.
Yeah, if you can give me a minute, I can find it.
This way they can kind of see on the map where you're going.
I want to say it was like R or S, Zach.
So it would be on your northern map, the northernmost section of Crow Wing County, and what he's referring to is alternative C.
Okay, yep, on this one here.
Which was, I think this one was submitted by the Minnesota DNR.
That is correct, yes.
Yes. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to give them a better interpretation of where you were talking about and what the alternative looked like. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, Joe, I certainly appreciate your presentation here, but, and I'm sure you already know this, but the Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners really don't have anything. It's fine that you're being able to say this in public, but the county board doesn't have anything to say about this project at all, as far as I know. Don?
I don't think we have any authority here.
No, we don't. So, but I completely understand. I've lived here my whole life, and I completely understand what you're talking about. But like I said, I'm hoping, well, I know that these folks are going to do the best job they can. And you talk about the environment, and I'm trying not to be political, but you got a lot of these people that are greenies, and they don't want to have any coal power, and they want to just go to wind and solar and everything else. And that's really kind of the reason why this project is happening, to strengthen the grid. Because, when the wind isn't blowing, like I've said, and the sun isn't shining, you still got to have power when people turn on the switch, whether it's if there isn't any more coal, it's going to be a gas-fired generator or something like that. But just want to say thanks for your presentation. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and we certainly respect, what's happening. I mean, this is part of progress, whether we like it or not, as it relates to, where we get our power and how we get our power. But what I'm hoping for is, too much of this happens to people without not everybody really understanding what's happening. And that's what I mean by the 15%. And it's up to us to be able to get and voice our opinions so that these things don't happen without really good thought being put into it. So, for example, when the suggested reroutes, we were not part of any open communication when this first came out. And we were not notified that our properties would even be impacted until the first week of April of this year, April of 2024. And by that time, everything is already in motion. And so not having the ability to publicly comment who's doing the assessment, and I know you guys, this is not your issue, but I'm just explaining the process, but you're our elected officials, and we need your support to help move this forward in any way that you possibly can. I know you don't have authority to dictate what routes go where, but nonetheless, we need your help in any way, shape, or form, whether it be people or can contact, or whatever the case might be. But this decision is not in the best interest of all parties. To protect a land that's inaccessible and disrupt 18 property owners, and you know what? We're all going to have to pay for that. They might say they're getting a grant from the government to run these lines, but we're still paying for that. That money doesn't come from just nowhere.
Yes. Well, Joe, I would just say, this is Paul Coring again. I would just say that's why I asked the question. They're going to have to, if they send a letter, let's say it's somebody in my constituent area, and they send multiple letters, they don't hear from these people, they're going to have to drive out there. They're going to have communications with them. Am I right, Zach? Yeah. And I can tell you that if I hear from one of my constituents that the communication is not sufficient, you can believe me, I'm going to come unglued. Most people run away from controversy. I seem to run towards it, but I'm going to make sure that I'm sure. I've talked to these folks here, Zach, and I think they're just trying to do the best job they can.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that initially when they came up with the route, they wanted to run it right up existing right-of-ways. And it's not, I don't have any issue with Minnesota Power or Great River at all. I think what they're trying to do is the right thing, and obviously they're doing their jobs for the country and the state and the county. But these other folks in the background that are making suggestions are the ones that we need to be able to, we need to get to the right people to be heard. And I'm not sure that, and I know this is not the best place, but you guys, we want you behind us. We need you behind us. We need to be able to get to these other folks so that we can be heard and people can start to look at this at a little bit more reasonable approach.
Well, I think we got your back, I can tell you that. Right, Don? Yep.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Please do.
Zach, what was the driving force to the alternate route here, up in that northernmost section?
I don't necessarily want to speak on behalf of the DNR and what their factors were, but a lot of it in that area, it doesn't show it on the map, but I think a lot of that area is public land and DNR property that we already go through. So I think that was one of the driving factors. And
So they don't want it in their property, they want it in somebody else's?
I'm not saying that or suggesting that.
I'll say it, I guess, but it just seems,
There could be other environmental resource factors that they suggested in their reasonings as well. Yep, and a lot of the DNR alternatives are due to those resources, a lot of water crossings, river crossings, wetlands, things of that nature, rare plant communities. So they did take that into account as well. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the DNR and their decisions and road alternatives.
okay, I just, it'd be nice if they were here to represent this project, but they seldom do show up. Is this a done deal, or?
No, these alternatives right now are being discussed, and everything is being taken into account. They compared these alternatives to Minnesota Power and GRE's proposed route that was actually filed with the commission. So they take that route alternative, they take the environmental costs, they take the cost, the physical costs of that alternative. A lot of these alternatives require different types of structures, which are approximately $550,000 more than what would be considered in the proposed route, per, this is say like a heavy angle structure, approximately almost $740,000 more for those types of structures rather than just continuing the straight line. So all of that is being taken into consideration within that EERA and the environmental assessment. So yes, they do look at it very with a microscope. Definitely.
So Zach, you would say the people that are like Joe and those people out there still have a voice?
Correct, yes. And Joe, I was just going to say, with you and your community members there, I'll give you kind of a tentative date of July 23rd in Crosby is when we'll be doing the public hearings with the administrative law judge. So I would really appreciate you and your group showing up to those and stating your stance on this too. And those will be on the record. All considerations and all public comment will be on the record at that time.
And I appreciate people like Joe being very, very, he's done his homework, he's done his detail work.
And yes, I'll applaud Joe, and I did see this exact presentation within the docket. I read it, and it was very well put together, and I think him and his community did a good job at voicing their frustrations as well as what this place means to them. So it does go a long way, and you are heard, and you will definitely be heard on the 23rd if you choose to show up.
Mr. Chair,
I will be there.
Will the DNR be invited to the meeting?
Yes, the DNR will be.
And they will be present?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know.
You can invite them, can't you?
They will. They're a stakeholder. Yes. Yep. And anyone that proposed a route will also, and that would be the DNR. Yep.
Okay, we'd like to kind of move ahead here. Is there anything else, Zach, you'd like to say? Anybody online or anybody from the board would like to speak? If not, I'd like to kind of move this ahead.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go on to our next item on the agenda, which is that's right, we jumped back. Land Services. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have two items for your consideration this morning. Both of them are land use map amendments. The first item we have is for a Mitchell and Tammy bus. This is located in Section 8 of Nokia Lake Township. It's parcel number 78080508, and the request is to change the land use map from agricultural forestry district to rural residential 10, involving approximately 40 acres. So here's the property in question. This is the Crooked Road here, and then it ties down here into Woodrow Road. And what they're wanting to do is this is currently that ag forest, which is our 35-acre density. The areas that you see down here in brown, that would be the rural residential 10. The areas that don't have any coloring on them are tax forfeited lands, and then this area in blue is a shoreline for this lake right here. So what they're asking to do is go from the R10, or go from agricultural to the R10 is the request. So the Planning Commission, the Board of Adjustment held a regular scheduled meeting on May 16th of 2024 to consider the land use map amendment request, and after reviewing the application, the staff report, public comments, the Planning Commission made a unanimous recommendation to the County Board based on the finding of fact that we have on file at Land Services to approve the land use map amendment for parcel 78080508 located in Nokia Lake Township, Section 8, from agricultural forested to rural residential 10 involving 40 acres. Staff have also reviewed all pertinent information as well and also recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, Mr. Chair, just a question on that. So I think I know the answer to that, but then that would be dividing it into 4 10-acre lots where...
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
I think the goal right now is to, they're looking to sell 10 acres in this area down here. I think they want to take a 10-acre chunk out of that and sell that.
But then, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so then the whole 40 would be...
The R10 acre,
10,
yep,
okay.
correct.
Well, this is kind of the way things are going, I mean, it goes back to Warren Morgan when he wanted to split off part and give to his granddaughter. I guess I don't know how you can say no to that. And so this is the way it's going. A lot of people wanting to move up here. And with that, Mr. Chair, this is in my district, so I will support this, being that the Planning Commission has vetted it thoroughly. So I would move the board action for the land use map amendment for Tammy and, is it Mitchell?
Yes.
Bus.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item we have on the agenda is another land use map amendment for Randall and Lindsay Moritz. This is up in Section 10 of Fairfield Township. The parcel number is 601-00506, and the request is to change from rural residential 1 to rural residential 2.5 involving approximately 13 acres. And so what you have up here right now is the area here in yellow, and then this property and right here is where there's an existing gravel pit. And so they've been operating a gravel pit up there for years. And what they're wanting to do, and at the meeting next Thursday, pending what happens today, they're wanting to amend the conditional use permit to allow gravel operations to occur on this parcel and to back here on this parcel, which would require a conditional use permit. The reason that they're here to talk to you today, the request is because RR1 land use district, that's not allowed use for a gravel pit. So it needs to be RR 2.5 or larger to be considered a gravel pit. And so that's what they're looking to do here. Between this property and this property, total acre gravel pit operations will be approximately 26 acres. But that'll be handled through the conditional use permit process. Right today, they're asking for to change the land use on this property from R1 to R2.5. So just a reminder, this is the ag zoning here. 2.5 is the yellow. The green over here would be the R20, and then this stretch right here would be 5 acre, and then this is the shoreline zoning around this little creek.
So, Mr. Chair, just a question for Chris on this one. So we're not approving, the county board doesn't approve a gravel pit. All we're doing is approving a land use map amendment.
Correct.
And then the proposed gravel pit or an expansion, that would be up to the planning commission.
Correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
Getting that
So
straight
it's
in
a
my head.
step one, step two, if is what
Correct.
we're looking at, and we're at step one because it's land use. Correct. Okay.
Yeah, so the Planning Commission held a regular scheduled meeting on May 16th of 2024 to consider this land use map amendment request. After reviewing the application, the staff report, public comments, and the finding of fact on file with Land Services, the PCBOA made a unanimous recommendation to the County Board of Commissioners to approve the land use map amendment for parcel 78080508 that's located in Noki Lake Township, Section 8, from RR1 to RR2.5, involving approximately 13 acres. Staff have also reviewed the pertinent information and also recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions. If not, I would make the motion to approve the rezone.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
We have the county sheriff, if you would like to come up, Chief Deputy.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I only have one thing that I'd like to talk to you about today, and that is recently, if you're not aware, Brainerd Paper put out an advertisement in regards to an event that's going to be happening at BIR this summer. It's a fireworks expo in August, and the sheriff approved the permit for the fireworks show here just last month, I believe. So just to educate the commissioners on what's going to be happening at the track during these dates. I invited a guest, the owner of BIR, Christy Kottman, if you could come up and just kind of give you a brief overview of what the event is going to entail and answer any questions the board might have.
This show has been wanting to come here for probably, I think Rosemary, we might have talked about that at one point, but they've been wanting to come up here for several years. And with the opportunity to finally do it, we decided last year that they would come this summer. Well, the impact on the county for this is upwards of $3 to $4 million. Excuse me, I'm a bit nervous standing up here in front of you guys. I've talked to you all individually, I think, but some of the neighbors I know are very concerned about the noise. And when I put this in the paper trying to get ahead of it, I knew there would be a lot of questions on what people were going to think. And it's not something that's going to show up. It's going to be constant noise for 7 days. It's a competition of sorts that they come up, they build their fireworks, that one goes off. They build another one, that one goes off. This group builds. So it's not going to be constant noise that's coming from the track. The representatives were willing to come up today, but I kind of figured just to get, the initial, cite to you guys that if you did have questions going forward, we could move on from that. But the public, just so they know, it's not necessarily noise for 7 days. It's, I think, a positive thing, and it's going to be really good for the community. It's going to be an amazing show. It's not something we're trying to burden the folks with. It's just another thing that we can do to bring tourism to Brainerd. So if you guys have questions, I know Don Ryan and I have talked several times in the past, always available. PGI is available to talk to. The Sheriff's Department, I've talked to you guys umpteen times. So any questions from you guys would be appreciated, so you know if you're getting complaints that you can answer going forward.
Mr. Chair, if I might. So, first of all, thank you for getting all this information out as early as you can. So the board knows I issued an invitation to the District 5 commissioners yesterday for all those counties to send their people up here during your event. One of the concerns that I anticipate is that most of these fireworks have to go off after dark. Would that be correct?
Most of them do. Yes, that's correct.
So we're
Some of them
talking-
they do throughout the day, but it's obviously not as much as when you can see them.
So we're talking from 10 o'clock until probably midnight, do you anticipate?
From what they said, they anticipate about 11:30 every night that they would go. They'll try to be done as soon as possible. It's going to be weather permitting, or, something happens. But when they're doing a competition, they want to finish the segment of their show and make sure that they get those on the same evening.
Okay.
I reached out to PGI and I asked them specifically about the times of these events, just like your concerns, and that is their attempt is going to start around 9 o'clock at night, hopefully no later than 9:30, and be done by 11:30. The time frame of the permit that was issued by the sheriff was giving them a placeholder in time in case of technical difficulties and so forth that happens that allows for movement of the time to go forward or back depending upon that. But he's telling me that they're hoping to start at 9 and be done by 11. And that's just the evenings of 3 specific nights of the 7-day event.
Okay, so, and that was my next question, is it isn't all 6 or 7 nights, it's just
Just 3
few
nights.
nights, 3 nights, huh?
Yeah. And if you go to BIR's website, it actually lists the events and the times so people can see the breakdown of what's going on. Obviously, this is a family-oriented event. We want people to go. We want people to come to the area. So there's ticket sales and so forth to go up there. That's why it's open for anyone to see the agenda, let's say for the day's events on each day. But I know for a fact that one of the days that's going to be night is going to be Sunday. Then there'll be a Wednesday night and then a Friday night, and that'll be, the finale will be on Friday night.
It is, they are shooting off fireworks for 7 days, though. It's 3 nights are open to the public for them to come in and actually observe the fireworks. The other nights, the way I understand it, is they needed the permit for 3 nights, but somehow with their organization, did you speak of that?
Well, they build different devices for the purposes of demonstration during the day, and during the daytime hours, they'll be shooting off items during the day, but not like like you'd see 4th of July event. It's here and there, like she had talked about. It's one here, and then they would do something, and they'd build something, and that's part of the expo where they actually go through the process and so forth for each group that comes into this. But the actual display that's going to be open and that's going to like a typical fireworks show you'd see is just on those 3 nights.
Mr. Chair, so there are 7 days where there will be fireworks exploded, correct?
Correct.
But not at the level of a public display with 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it might be, all at once.
Exactly.
So there is, just for clarification, there will be noise for 7 days, not the level of concentrated noise like a big public display would have.
Right. Just for information, back many, many years ago, I belonged to the PGI. And I always thought that would be kind of fun to learn about it. And it is a very professional organization that does this, and it's a national event. I mean, to have this here is a big deal. And you're going to see fireworks there that no city can afford to put up on their own when they do this. So I would really invite the people, if the weather's nice, for people to come out there and watch these shows, because you're going to see stuff there that they build this stuff. They build it from the raw material and they put it together. And it's a professional group. It's not a bunch of people like I see around the lakes and 4th of July, all night, 4th of July, 1st of July, 2nd of July, 3rd of July, 4th of July. These are people launching off some beautiful, beautiful fireworks. So I think it's really nice to see that in our area. And thank you again for getting ahead of it, because yes, it is a concern when we have that up here. We have a lot of people up here and they're concerned about their noise and stuff. So thank you very much for doing it and getting them here.
I don't think a lot of people realize it's an organization that you can join.
Yes.
That you can learn how to build the fireworks. You can become part of it. So that was a misconception in the beginning as well. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chair, just one quick thing before you leave. If you think you're nervous standing there, come up here and sit for a while.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Thank you for coming in and presenting it to us.
Thank you.
And that's all I had, unless you have any questions specifically for the sheriff.
Nope, I have none.
Well, I was
And-
just wondering if, I always kind of thought maybe the city of Jenkins would like a big,
Well, that's what I was thinking of doing someday, building my own and
but
doing
I'm
it
not
for
supposed to
Jenkins.
say the J word.
Yeah, don't say the J word. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I know how you feel about that. But no, so thank you, Paul, and thank you.
Glad that helped.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. County Attorney,
I don't have anything for you today, Mr. Chair. Sorry I was late. I got caught in court, got here as quickly as I could, but I certainly can answer any questions that you may have for me.
Board have any
No
questions?
questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don. County Administrator,
Mr. Chair, we had a senior management team meeting yesterday for the first time in a couple of months, given holidays and agenda items. So we did have several things that we discussed yesterday. First thing we had was a report from our continuous improvement team. If you recall, we've had a number of staff across our organization who are involved in these continuous improvement exercises that are looking at how our services are offered. And yesterday, we heard from a couple of team members who had been working on a project around vital records requests from community services. That project has just finished up. And we also heard from our black belts who noted that our pipeline is getting a little bit thin. So we are looking for any ideas for continuous improvement projects from our departments, and we're hopeful we're going to have some brainstorming sessions within those departments to try to find a few more projects. We've talked about how we've already lopped off the low-hanging fruit. Now it's really looking at how can we make some really deep impact on some of our services and projects that we're looking for. So we do have another group of folks who are going to be going through the Greenbelt certification, and as part of their training, they actually work on a real project. So we are looking for some additional projects to add for those folks to be ready this fall to take on that effort. We also had a discussion around our cell phone policy. If you may know that we have two different ways that we're offering cell phones for those employees who need it. We do have some staff who are receiving a stipend for the use of their personal device, or we have county-issued devices as well. One of the things that we continue to talk about is ongoing cybersecurity. We want to make sure that we are keeping all of our data as secure as possible. So the discussion really rather looked at whether or not we should change our policy to look more for county-issued devices versus personal devices to ensure that we can keep that security piece as well as having the access for those folks who need a cell phone for their work that they're doing for the county. We also talked a little bit about our recruitment microsite and some of the targeted advertising that we're doing for recruitment. As we continue to have a really tough labor market, one of the things we want to do is be very competitive and start to try to target some of those folks who are maybe not necessarily looking for a job right now, but how do we emphasize what Crow Wing County has to offer? So if you go to our website and you click on our careers page, you're going to see a microsite, if you will, that kind of highlights not just the openings that we have with maybe a job description and a list of what the different positions are, but it also has some emphasis on what positions and careers we have available at the county, what our culture is here. It's a little bit more graphic, a little bit more fun, trying to catch folks' eye and have them maybe be a little bit more interested in what we have to offer here. So you also may be hearing some radio advertisements on targeted weekends as people are coming and going from Crow Wing County. We're trying to hit them as they're sitting in traffic and saying, well, you could already be here, or you don't have to go home, you could already be home if you were here in Crow Wing County. So you might be hearing some of those things as well. And then finally, we had a review of our 2025 through 2029 capital improvement plan. This was the first review that the senior management has had of these projects that have been vetted through the departments and the staff. This is for our 5-year capital plan that has been refined through a few times. And if you recall, each year we're starting to do a little bit closer review of each of those things. One of the things that we did talk about is we do still have some supply chain issues, namely in the vehicle procurement areas. Squad cars in particular are getting more difficult for us to be able to procure. So we're continuing to look at that plan, and you will see a draft of that plan coming before you on July's budget committee is when you will see that CIP plan as part of that first review. That's all we discussed yesterday, and that's all I have for my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
County Administrator, would you have thought in your 30 years that you'd be sitting there and saying, how are we going to market this county to get employees? I mean, when you think about that, it was...
Mr. Chair, it's interesting because it used to be a posting in the local newspaper is how you found out about a job opening. Now, not only are you making the posting, you have to be competitive in how you're making the posting and how are you targeting some of those people. Sometimes we talk about how artificial intelligence has its pros and cons. One of the things it can do is when we start talking about Crow Wing County, all of a sudden your little device is picking up that you're talking about Crow Wing County. We're hopeful that that targeted advertising is going to them and saying, hey, here are some of those positions that are available at Crow Wing County. We're marketing ourselves as much as we are posting for jobs that are available.
Okay.
Just a question, how many black belts do we have? Because the reason why I asked that, because Rosemary, I always tell her how to vote, but she won't listen to me, so, and then she reminds me she's a black belt. Are you a black belt? No, I'm just kidding.
Mr. Chair, right now, actually, Commissioner Coring, we have 2 black belts. We have 2 black belts. We have about 10 to 12 folks who are certified as green belts, and we have about another 10 to 15 who would be that level of green belts that we would be bringing on in a new cohort yet this fall.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else from the board for Deb? Thank you very much. Additional business, I see that's on the agenda. Nothing? Okay, now it looks like we're going into a closed meeting, and I need to,
Announce what that is.
and we need to start that process.
Mr. Chair, we have a closed session for pending litigation pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3B. So we will be taking a short break here to get set up for the closed session.
I do need a motion to go into closed session, please.
I'll
make that motion to adjourn to the closed session.
I'll second.
Do we have a motion and a second? We are adjourned to closed session.
You need to vote on that.
Huh?
Need a
Did you knock over my nameplate?
It's been.
Okay.
Okay, and we're back in open session, but we do want to read what we closed for.
We're back in open session in conducting a pending litigation in regards to Spoidler versus Crow Wing County pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subsection 3. Do I have to hit anything now?
Turn your microphone on too.
On?
Is it on?
It's off.
Turn it on.
Okay.
You gotta have it on.
Okay, now you have to say it again because we couldn't hear you.
What do you mean you couldn't hear me? Don't do that.
Well, it will be pretty light in the recording.
Okay, we're in open session, coming out of a closed session for pending litigation, Spoidler versus Crow Wing County pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subsection 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Based on the discussion, we are asking for a resolution. This resolution would, we're asking that you approve the settlement agreement that's been negotiated. The court file is 62CV233405. That was a consolidation of all the cases, which is funded by the legislative appropriation in Chapter 113 of the 2024 session laws. We're also asking that you're authorizing the Land Services Director to meet the requirements for participating counties outlined in Chapter 113 of the 2024 session laws, and that you authorize myself to execute the settlement document on behalf of the county.
Mr. Chairman, I would so move the resolution that's been presented here to the County Board of Commissioners in Crow Wing County.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you.
What's that?
You have to say opposed the same sign.
I have to say opposed?
You have to say, is there anyone opposed?
Oh, is there anyone opposed? Even though we've all said aye?
Mr. Chairman, if there's nothing else, I'd remind everybody that June is Dairy Month, as a former dairy farmer. And I don't know if you brought up, Steve, before, the Malloy family is having did you bring that up?
I have not, but.
Pardon me?
I have not, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I wish I'd have thought of that quicker. But they're having, on the 18th, I believe, from 4 to 8, they're having brisket on the farm, and everybody's invited, so I don't know, where would you go to find that?
As a reminder, they were the Farm of the Year last year.
I believe you're right.
They raised the Wagyu
So
cows.
So buy lots of milk, and if there's no other announcements, Mr. Chairman, I would so move the adjournment of the county board.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Do I have to say opposed on this one too, then? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed? Motion
Motion
carried.
passes. There you go.
We are adjourned.